Who?
He still exists.
Who?
He still exists.
He's still alive.
We can't pretend he's not around.
He's still
He's
getting a
around.
check.
Never heard of him.
Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, he's still
I've never
around.
heard that name before.
Yeah, that's true.
Who is he? Who is he? Is he a new up-and-coming actor?
Lex Luthor.
He's going to be ransom out for
Probably the best
now.
Luthor they've had in film so far. In a lousy movie. Best Luthor they've had so far.
Even a man with my vast talents is worth less inside than a carton of cigarettes and a sharp piece of metal in your pocket.
I guess I could be pretty pissed off about what happened to me. But it's hard to stay mad when there's so much beauty in the world.
Wrong! Oh, you should put that speech on tape.
He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
Hello, Chicago, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Gotta drink to that.
Welcome to Alternate Reality.
Was a Paul Schrader movie.
Oh, the remake?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
Mishima, Light of Day, Patty Hearst. It was called Patty Hearst.
Oh, just Patty Hearst?
Yeah. And that was
The
1988.
Canyons was one with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, that's...
That wasn't.
That must have been
2013.
I was going to say, that's after
Anything after
2000.
that?
Dying of the Light in 2014. Dog Eat Dog in 2016.
Light Sleeper's good.
Yeah, he's got
Willem
a few-
Dafoe.
Oh, he didn't write this one. He's got one coming out called The Jesuit.
The Jesuit?
Yeah,
Another religious theme thing?
probably.
I mean, that the film you're talking about, that's sort of a religious theme thing, isn't it? It's all about redemption and...
First Reformed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't say redemption. It's questioning.
Well, questioning, yeah. I mean, when I say religious, I don't mean religious and convert everybody. I mean, introspective, searching for meaning in life.
In a way,
through
it
faith.
is. I mean, I think it ends up being by human love, redempted by human love.
At the ending, yeah.
But it's still a kind of redemption theme. It just goes a different way than like they panned it in National Review. He said it.
Really?
They didn't
he
like
thinks it's like a millennial era movie, and I think he wanted it to end with a transcended spiritual moment where he goes to God.
Oh, instead of...
I don't want to spoil it, but I already did, I guess.
That's okay. I probably won't be. If I see it, it'll probably be on Netflix or something 5 years from now.
It's worth a view for sure, but
Yeah.
it's a tough sit. He's put through the ringer quite a bit. I mean, he already comes into it with... He has a son.
Well, it's an ecological story too, isn't it?
Well, that's part of it. He
Or
begins
is that
to
just a
question-
symbolic background to it?
No, the whole concept. One of the concepts is his son, who he convinced to go into the military. If I'm remembering this correctly, he convinced his son to go into the military. The kid ends up getting killed, so he's already got this on him.
Right.
He is sought out for help by a woman who's married to an extremist, naturalist extremist.
Okay. Eco-terrorist?
Yeah, suicide vest and the whole
Right.
9 yards type of thing. And she's pregnant. He wants her to, the husband wants her to have an abortion. She's looking for help from him.
The pregnant woman's name is Mary.
Mary, yeah.
Mary, okay.
Yeah. Once he starts talking to the husband and hearing all this ecological stuff about he doesn't want to have a kid because the planet's in crap shape and it's only
Right.
going to get worse, the priest starts to think, he's right. And why isn't the church at the spearhead of this? Because we as spiritual beings, as Christ's creation, have a stewardship of the planet. Yeah. Why is the church turning its back on this? This could be a learning thing for everyone if it was coming from the pulpit. So he's dealing with that. He goes to meet the suicidal husband, and when he gets to the place that they're supposed to meet the guy who's killed, he shot himself in the mouth.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
He's counseled by a showy African-American
Cedric
preacher.
the Entertainer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and but we're supposed to I think that he's kind of shallow. Doesn't feel so deeply.
He has like a mega church, if I remember.
Right. The correct review I read in National Review attacked it also because I think they thought it represented black ministry as a whole, but I didn't see it that way.
No, certainly that mega church concept, I think, is...
You know what else is a megachurch, don't you? A lot of people look at it that way.
What is that?
The alternate reality is considered by some people a megachurch. Really, it is. I've gotten cards and letters from people that say, I listen to your show and it's almost like a megachurch to me.
I would suggest that every Wednesday on New Comic Book Day, you start passing the hat.
What a great idea!
And you can have not only the main offering, but you can have a secondary offering for upkeep of the church.
That'd be great. Oh, lad, that'd be great.
Go full tilt on it. You want to wear vestments on Wednesdays?
You betcha.
Fabulous.
You betcha. Cosplay.
Catholic cosplay.
Hey, folks, Comicbookman here. Welcome to the Alternate Reality. It's once again time for the best little podcast on the face of the earth, Alternate Reality, coming to you from Alternate Reality, the comic book store located at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie in beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality, our all new comics are always 15% off every day for everyone. This is a very special episode of the Alternate Reality. We are doing the top 10 films at the midterm. This is just the middle of the year. The top 10 films at the midterm. And joining me today are not one, but two of our film critics, the Titanic twosome of good old JR. Say hi, JR.
Hi, JR.
Hi, JR. And a man who I've talked about many times on the show, has never been here before. This is his first time on the podcast. And that is the one, the only. He's been doing reviews on and off for the website now for about 2 years? About
maybe,
2 years?
Maybe.
Okay. The one and only Big Tuna, Vito Carli. Welcome to the show, Vito.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Vito, this is your first time on the show. JR has been here before. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself who only know you through reading your reviews on the store's website?
Well, I teach at a couple of colleges, Daly and Moraine. I used to review movies for The Star and for RealMovieCritic.com. And I have a lot of my interviews on my website, artinterviews.org.
The link for which is on all of your reviews on those stores' websites.
Okay. Yeah, and I also have a poetry show about 4 times a year at the Art Colony.
Okay.
And my poetry book is called A Passion for Apathy. And I have another one coming out called Tube Worm Salad with Olive Oil for Extra Flavor.
And where can people find these books at?
They have it at Quimby's Books.
Okay.
There's a bookstore in Oak Park where they have... I could bring a couple here if you want.
Sure, they can go on the indie rack and collect dust along there. That's great.
Well, I know poetry is very popular.
Yeah, well, you betcha it is.
Off the shelves.
You'd be amazed at the number of people that come into the store looking for poetry books along with Sabretooth #4.
Just never know.
And that one issue of John Burns' OMAC that came out 25 years ago, which I've somehow just never caught up with.
If anyone likes to read movie reviews, I would to look for Vito's reviews.
Oh,
very insightful.
I like to read your stuff too.
Thank you.
I thought we were going to hate each other.
Yeah.
That's very magnanimous of you. It's very magnanimous of you. JR, of course, has been the movie critic, movie reviewer, the viewer emeritus.
God bless you.
On the store's website since about 2000. I have not done. I swear to God. Well, you skipped a couple of years there. Where you took your ball and went home.
Prison.
But we worked out.
I had a call from Leonard Maltin. What was
if you're looking for any reviews from 2003, 2004, most of 2005, it sort of jumps. But since then, though, JR's done from, I don't know, 20 to 25 reviews a year on the website. So you've got probably close to 500-600 reviews up there. It's amazing. And Vito, he's got a handful of reviews. He hasn't been doing it nearly as long, but he's got a handful of reviews up. I think it would be fair to say that Vito is interested more in doing art house reviews, although Vito sees a wide variety of films. And JR does too. But Vito does primarily art house type reviews, and JR does primarily, I don't want to say crowd pleaser, but Hollywood films, big budget films, big budget, mainstream.
There's good trash too.
Yes, sure. And I save my art house stuff for the year-end list.
Yes, yes. When we do an year-end list at the end of the year, well, beginning of next year, once you put the list together, your list usually is predominantly art house type films, but you don't do those for the website. Vito's been doing some of those. Exactly. So anyway, we're doing our top 10 at the midterm. These are what both of you consider to be the best films of the year so far.
Thus far.
Okay, this is not your final list, obviously, for the year, because we've got the whole rest of 2018 to do, and I'm sure that stuff will get knocked out of your top 10 right now and be replaced by other films that are coming out. But this is your top 10 list right now. And so we're going to go through all 10, which I think is going to be about 17 films altogether. I think you two have a little crossover, but not much.
Beautiful.
So why don't we get started with both of your number 10s. Anyone have any preference for going first?
Vito,
why don't you go first?
The guest will go first.
You know what? This might be considered a 2017 movie, but I have Phantom Thread down.
Okay.
I think that Daniel Lewis's performance is magnificent, but he's always really great, but this is even better than a lot of his other performances. Like he's great in My Left Foot, great in Age of Innocence.
Abe Lincoln.
Right. And so he's a magnificent actor. I really enjoy this one intellectually. He doesn't make me feel as much as some other filmmakers. His movie's like kind of coldly intellectual, and the main character is very unsympathetic. It's about a man involved in the clothes fashion designing industry, and he's kind of tyrannical toward his wife. He seems to have mental problems too, and he kind of bullies her. He's kind of like one of these magnificent tortured artists that we admire but don't want to live with. and it's got really good cinematography, beautiful visuals, and a nice soundtrack by Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead.
Oh, it's a great soundtrack. That film was, I think, on my year-end last year at number 3 or 2.
Maybe I should take it off.
No. That's a fine pick, because honestly, it didn't start until late in the year. It didn't open until late here in Chicago, and many people didn't see it until after that. So, no, it's a great pick.
It might not be till the middle to the end of December of last year. So,
yeah, right around Christmas.
What's your number 10?
I am going to switch gears, and we're going to go
and before you say that, let me mention that these films were going in order by their lists. So there's not going to be much in the way of crossover between... We both had the same number 8.
Exactly.
There's probably not going to be that.
Yeah.
So, but your number 10 is...
my number 10 would be Black Panther, Ryan Coogler's film. Okay. Arguably...
I've heard about that.
A few people saw it.
Wasn't that about a guy that turns into a panther and
yes, and eats people.
And eats people. Like cat people.
It's kind of like that, yeah. Now, this was Marvel's early entry this year, and arguably one of their best, if not the best film, not only because the character is pretty fascinating, but Coogler is a director who underlines a lot of his films with a lot of racially tinged subtext. Mm-hmm. And even though it's a superhero film and it's a popcorn film, there are some things there that, for me personally, kind of make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Line of dialogue towards the end about...
Tell me about your white liberal guilt, please.
And it's hard not to go there, because, you have lines of dialogue about I would like to die as my ancestors did. Yeah. But I think the film tackles a lot of those, so it's entertaining as well as insightful at the same time, and he always gets great performances out of his actors too.
And Eric Killmonger is a great villain.
Yes, exactly. One of the things that Marvel's usually missing is a great villain.
There's no good villains in Iron Man movies.
They sort of did in the first one with Stain, with the Ironmonger suit, but I mean, it's only in the last 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah, it seems like once you get past Loki, it's hard to come up with another one.
I would never put Ironmonger on the same level as a Loki or a Red Skull, but Marvel doesn't have much in the way of decent villains.
Well, it's hard to put somebody in there when they're all like red baiting a communist, like megalomaniacs from China or Russia.
There are ways to do characters like Titanium Man. I mean, nobody knows that Titanium Man was originally a communist character. I mean, you just don't do it like that.
And I think Killmonger...
And that's sort of what Ironmonger was.
Killmonger works as well in that film as he does because of Michael B. Jordan. It's always an actor who's, not to sound hyperbolic about it, but it's that ticking time bomb, the fuse that's waiting to go off all the time.
Okay. Vito, you're number 9.
Hereditary. I think it's on your list.
Yes.
Oh, that moves a party, I hear.
And, you know what? I wasn't going to put it on there originally, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. It's like... I like horror films, but there's not a lot of great horror films. I mean, most of them are just, crap. But this one is so sinister. One thing I liked about it is, in contrast to all those slasher films and torture porn movies, the most scary stuff in here is stuff that isn't shown on screen. It's what you imagine happened that you don't see.
Well, it's always the best horror, stuff that you don't have to see. You don't have to see an axe go through a face to be scared.
And the horror in this film comes from a place that everybody can kind of tap into, and that's grief. Mm-hmm. Once you kind of take that element, which is maybe one of the greater emotional experiences, and you bring the horror element into that, it's hard not to find yourself really pulled into it. And it's got a great central performance by Toni Collette. It's not a name you hear a lot about, but in here, this is like an Oscar-worthy performance as far as I'm concerned. But it does take you down that rabbit hole of torment and grief.
And it's very influenced by Polanski, I think.
Very much so. First-time director.
Not just Rosemary's Baby, but also there's a movie called The Tenant, where somebody commits suicide in his apartment, a woman, and then he becomes the woman. And I think there's
elements of that.
Another personality taking over a person.
Yeah.
And obliterating them is a really disturbing concept.
Right.
They do really well.
Yeah, this is a first-time director, and it's kind of amazing how sure-footed the film is.
Your number 9?
My number 9 is a documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Oh, Mr. Fred Rogers one.
The Fred Rogers documentary by Morgan Neville, who's kind of made a career out of making great documentaries. Best of Enemies was about William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal.
Now, will this documentary make me cry?
It did me, Comicbookman, without a doubt. And that's not to sound maudlin about it, because at first you think going into this maybe it's going to be a warts and all sort of thing, and you find out that even though it is a warts and all, there's not a lot of warts on Mr. Rogers. This was a...
he was a sniper in Vietnam, wasn't he?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, this is one of those... It's hard to describe the film in the respect of the center subject matter. The person is everything that you saw on the screen. what kind of was shocking to me was the fact that the show that he did, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, tackled so many subjects that I never thought that they tackled. Mm-hmm. There's a segment in the film that shows an episode right after Bobby Kennedy's assassination where we're in the land of make-believe and one character asks another character, what's assassination mean? Kind of amazing that this was tackled in the 60s.
On a kid's show. And Rogers has a line in the film during one of the interviews where he says that everything about us, everything that we do, everything that we're about, either comes from love or the absence of love. And, I look at this film and I think about the situation today that we're facing. The first part of that statement is obvious. The second part of that statement, nobody ever thinks of.
Brilliant. Exactly. And this was Fred Rogers. And there's really no warts to the man at all. I mean, there's a segment in the film where he finds out one of the actors on the show is gay. The actor is considering coming out, and he tells him, no, you don't want to do that, even though Fred Rogers was a minister. The reason he didn't want him to come out because he thought it would ruin this man's career. So he said, for now, keep it quiet.
It wasn't King Friday, was it?
No, it was not King Friday, no. But there's another scene in the film involving racism where he has the local cop in the town that the neighborhood takes place in is African American, and Fred's soaking his feet in a little tub outside on a hot day, and he invites the cop to take off his shoes. And this is 1967. I never knew Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was groundbreaking in those respects, but it's a film worth seeing because of the man. Need to know more about that man.
Vito, you're number 8.
I had this movie called Lover for a Day by this filmmaker named Philip Garrell. He's almost unknown in America, but they had a film series of his stuff at the Cisco Center. They showed about 15 of his films. I saw, about 3 or 4. He was actually Nico's boyfriend for the Velvet Underground.
Oh, Nico.
And he used her in a bunch of movies.
Oh, okay.
One of the ones I saw, the other ones was really influenced by Andy Warhol.
Okay.
With, people like doing drugs and falling asleep and being really irritated. But this one is a little more traditional, and it's about a philosophy professor who's in love with a much younger woman, a student. Mm-hmm. They live together, and then the daughter has a bad breakup. She moves in with them. And at first, the daughter hates his girlfriend, who's the same age as they're the same age, the daughter and the girlfriend. They get to like each other, and it's just a nice gradual character development. It's got really good dialogue. It's like one of those old Eric Rohmer or Woody Allen films. I have a problem with a lot of American romantic comedies. Not that they're horrible, it's just that the people are less interesting than people I know. But these people are kind of interesting and quirky, and they're interested in culture when they always talk about culture. So it's called Lover for a Day.
Well, there aren't a lot of rom-coms that are being made into movies anymore, are there? I mean, isn't most of that stuff migrated over to Netflix?
A lot of it's on
or
Netflix.
Hulu or one of the other streaming services?
I saw a bunch of Netflix comedies, and they're really pale before this. The Netflix movies I saw this year weren't really that good. I saw a bunch of great ones last year. What was the African American one?
Yes, yeah. I was just thinking that as you were saying about
that
Netflix.
was as good as most of the.
Yeah, I think that was on my list last year too.
Yeah, but this one is a special film. If you can find it.
Okay. And today that's the good thing about choosing films like this is because 20 years ago you would never be able to find this film, but with all the streaming services.
And Garrell is contemporary of. He's a French New Wave guy, so he's a contemporary of Godard and Truffaut, and most of them are dead. And it's kind of good. He's still making. Agnes Varda's making.
Well, he's
films.
carrying on from them. Then.
And Godard is still making movies. He shoots most of them on digital video.
Right.
But I like his new movies quite a bit.
Yeah.
You're number 7?
Annihilation from director Alex Garland, who made my top pick a couple of years ago called Ex Machina, which I think we've had running in the store here. Yeah. So, now, this movie was sold by Paramount as an action movie when they promoted it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the stills of it. You've got the women.
It's a group of
women marching into the jungle in fatigues. So, with their guns, ready to go to.
It's not an action film by any stretch. It's more of a twisted, mind-bendy sci-fi film. It's also more of a think piece too. I'm sure you saw it too as well, Vito. It has to do with 5 female scientists. We've been invaded by a group of aliens. There's an area on Earth that is surrounded by an electromagnetic field called the Shimmer. Someone goes in, they send somebody in, they never come back out. These 5 women are tasked with going in. It plays several mind games within the Shimmer for these 5 women. Natalie Portman's in it. An actress I always find to be very kind of stiff. I always see her working at being an actress, working at being a character as opposed to actually being the character. But in here, she's fine.
So these women, they go through essentially a voyage of discovery for themselves. From
not so much a voyage of discovery, more of a destruction. It's actually frightening. After years and years.
Oh, it's not one of those things where they bring out all their deepest fears and mommy comes out and tells them, "I always told you you'd amount to nothing."
I don't want to spoil. There's a moment in the film that has to do with a bear.
Is it wearing a top hat on the unicycle?
a bear that has been sort of mutated through whatever's happening within this area of the shimmer into alien DNA has been involved in all this. As a predatory move, this bear will absorb the sound of its victim's final screams.
Oh, great.
And it uses that the voice to draw their people to it. Scream in the sound of someone you know. Okay. Which makes you run towards it, and you don't realize what you're running towards until you actually get there. But there's a scene involving the women inside.
Oh, it's like the Abraham Lincoln episode of Star Trek. Spock.
Nothing like that at all, Tim. Lincoln is not in it anywhere to be seen. But it was really effective to me. And the final 15 minutes has to do with a person losing their identity to alien DNA and an alien losing their identity to human DNA and what constitutes being a human being. And there's more going on with that film than meets the eye.
Okay, Vito, you're number 7.
I put Tully down. Okay. It stars Charlize Theron. She plays a mother with a breakdown last time she had a baby.
I've run your review of it on the website.
So she's having a new baby, and they hire a housekeeper to help her out. And they have an unusually close and multi-layered relationship, and it turns out that there's more on the surface than you see initially. There's a little mystery. I don't want to give it away.
Okay.
And it's Ivan Reitman.
That's you're thinking. No, Jason Reitman.
But he did a movie with Charlize Theron a few years ago where she was this kind of beautiful but self-absorbed and haughty woman, and this kind of geeky guy falls for her, knew her in high school, and then they have a moment of like a breakthrough moment where they kind of connect. But he's really good with characterization and character development, and there's good dialogue in it. I think it's kind of a feminist movie too in a way. It's about multi-personality. I thought of it as a feminist version of Fight Club in a way. But I really recommend it, though. And Charlize Theron, I think, is an underrated actress.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
You think so? I mean, she won an Academy Award, didn't she?
She won an Oscar.
Monster.
Yeah, for Monster.
Yeah. Which is already how many years ago?
Quite a while ago.
Yeah. But she's consistently good.
I even like her in films I dislike.
Oh, sure. Yeah. She'll be the best element of a lot of movies, without a doubt. Oh, what was that comic book related one she did last year? Atomic Blonde.
Oh, yeah, Atomic Blonde. That's right. Yeah,
and
that's right.
It's watchable because of Charlize Theron.
Not to get into a whole Atomic Blonde thing, but 2/3 of the way into the movie, there's this big fight she has in the apartment. It just goes on for like 20 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't end. And, she gets the crap beat out of her in that thing. And she gives as good as she gets in the thing, too. It's not just her being abused. I mean, she kills a bunch of guys and beats the crap out of them, too.
Let's not forget about Mad Max Fury Road, which was...
Oh, that's right. She was in Mad Max.
Yeah, tremendous.
Okay. Number 6.
You Were Never Really Here by director Lynn Ramsey, who made We Need to Talk About Kevin a couple of years ago. Stars Joaquin Phoenix as a bounty hunter who is trying to rescue trafficked girls. He's in a lifestyle that he doesn't necessarily like, but he doesning really know how to escape. It's a vicious film. It's as
in what way?
Violent as I've seen in a long time, but it really gets under the skin of Joaquin Phoenix's character. And that's another actor who I think Academy does sort of recognize him every once in a while, but it's not a name that's on everybody's lips, and that's another consistently good actor. But it's a film that takes a real harsh, violent look at that world that he lives in, but it also finds a way, even though he does what he does, and he does deal with these people that traffic girls extremely harshly, there's also a human side to him that it doesn't negate what he does, but it does make you reevaluate the situation is what he's involved in.
Well, I would assume in some ways justification for what he does. Yeah.
I like the fact it jumps around and some of the stuff that we think happens didn't happen.
Right.
And how we get into his mind so totally. That's another movie. I think there's about 3 or 4 films this year. Some of the best films. They're really influenced by Taxi Driver and Scorsese.
Oh, it is definitely the modern it's the 21st century Taxi
And Lynn
Driver.
Ramsey did a movie I like, I think called Ratcatcher.
Yeah.
And but she's a good filmmaker. Though.
Yeah, very good.
Scotland, is it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of really good female filmmakers. He's going to mention one later, I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
Maybe. What about you? What's your number 6?
Lady of the Immortal, which...
based on the manga.
It showed once at the Chicago International Film Festival, but I think it never opened. But I think it came out in video this year, so I included it. Takeshi Milky, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's a really talented, stylish, but gory filmmaker. He did a great horror film called Audition a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
He mostly does really macabre comedies or horror movies or action films. It's got some great action sequences. It's about a man who lives forever, and a girl asks him to assassinate somebody, and he kind of hesitantly agrees to go along with it. I mean, it's tempted to put Black Panther on a list. I think I like this director a little better than most of the Marvel Universe directors. But Black Panther is a really good movie, too. I agree.
Yeah.
So this is your comic book choice?
I guess. I might have put it on there anyway, though. I really like Asian film. I think a lot of the best American films that we, like Star Wars and The Matrix, they take so much from Asian cinema, and we don't give Asian film the day of the week at all. We just kind of like, most people just kind of like turn their back on it, and my students are all turned off by subtitles.
That's a shame.
Well, there's a comic that just came out based on a movie, The Raid. I did some reading up on it before I ordered it. It was a very groundbreaking film in Asia, I guess because of the action scenes. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I also read the Dark Horse translations years ago, and I liked the comic series a lot, too. And I don't read that many Japanese comics. I'm a hypocrite, I guess. But...
You can only read so much. There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get to number 5, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to jump over to JR with his number 5. And we'll be back right after this. Folks, there really is no other store that has as many sales as Alternate Reality. Beyond our signature sale of 15% off all new comics, we also have specialized sales peppered throughout the week, month, and year. For example, did you know that every Thursday is Ladies' Day at the store? That's right, ladies. Stop by the store and you'll save 20% off all of your purchases all day long. Ladies from 8 to 80 get a 20% discount on everything all day, every Thursday, only at Alternate Reality. And we're back. JR, what do you got for number 5?
The one that surprised me more than anybody else, I think, is Paddington 2.
That surprised me, too. I mean, especially considering it's a sequel to a kid's film.
Paddington is fine. The original film is fine. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the original film was fine, but I mean, a sequel to a kid's film, you don't expect anything.
And I'm not going to make excuses for it. It is what it is. It's a CG animated stuffed bear, but that movie, more than any other film this year, maybe outside of the Won't You Be My Neighbor, kind of leaves you feeling uplifted when you walk out the door, and that's something that you don't. We're spending the time here talking about people who are bounty hunters and samurai and all that sort of thing, but here's
hyper violent movies.
Exactly, and here comes a movie about a small bear who's.
Does he get his head cut off?
No, he doesn't actually.
Damn.
No. But here's the thing about Paddington, and I don't mean this to sound mawkish either, but it flies under the radar in that this bear is trying his best to bring joy to everybody that's around him. And usually we see the inverse. We see characters trying to bring other people down. And I think there's a joyous aspect to this that I don't want to undermine at all. I think it's worth seeing just for that feeling of coming out of it. And this is the year of Hugh Grant. He gives a great performance in this film.
I've heard a lot about his performance. He's a bad guy, right?
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Yeah, he's great in this. And also, it's not only is this film his year, he also has a film on Amazon Prime right now, too, and I'm blanking on the title of it, that he's really making a comeback this year. Also in this film is, for Doctor Who fans, a small role by Peter Capaldi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, playing a neighbor, playing the next door neighbor.
Okay.
I liked it too.
Yeah, it's really enjoyable. It's kind of an uplifting film. That's the one thing I took away from it.
I didn't quite put it on my list, but I enjoyed that a lot, and Game Night, just as fun.
Game Night is fun too.
Uplifting entertainment.
I've seen a couple of reviews of Paddington 2 over the course of the last few months, and yeah, I'm surprised almost everybody has nothing but good things to say about all the reviewers.
And it comes from the UK. It's a film made in the UK for children, and unlike American films that are made for children here, it's not this raucous, loud runaround for 90 minutes that involves pop culture references and fart jokes. It's got a little bit more on its mind than that.
Well, I don't see anybody going to see it if it doesn't have fart jokes.
Really. And you know what? Not many people went to see it, unfortunately.
Well, it might be one of those things that works better on Netflix or home video.
Right.
That's one of the only kids' films I would have seen without my nephew.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just, myself.
Okay. You're number 5, Vito.
Well, it's You Were Never Really Here Again.
Oh, okay. Well, you talk a little more about it.
Well, Joaquin Phoenix, he is a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
I thought that in the Johnny Cash film, I've seen Johnny Cash live, and Reese Witherspoon's nothing at all like his wife, in appearance or how she talks or anything. But he did get some of Cash, and the Oscar committee overlooked him.
That's kind of odd, because I thought he gave the better of the two performances.
And that movie is a total lie, too, because Johnny Cash didn't sober up. But You Were Really Here is a very powerful movie, not lighthearted, but because of the way it's arranged through the eyes of this PTSD man, reminded me of The Sound of the Fury, the Faulkner novel, because the main character, he's got mental problems, and we just see the world through his view for the first chapter. Then the second chapter, you see it through somebody else's view. You don't understand it till later on. And you just get into the mind of a disturbed person really deeply in this movie, and you don't see that done very well very often in movies.
So you liked it?
Yeah, it's my number 5. So
that's great.
Number 4, what do you got, Jer?
Hey, I got another horror movie. I've got
another one.
Another one.
Paddington 3?
I've been talking about this for the last... Yes, horrifying.
Paddington 3, The Revenge.
The last few years have been sort of a renaissance for the horror film.
Yeah, talk to Rod Flash about that. Yes,
okay.
he talks about that a lot.
A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski.
Okay, yeah.
And starring himself and his wife, Emily Blunt.
Is that him and his wife?
That's him and his wife.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes,
That I didn't know.
It's the year 2020. Earth has been invaded by creatures who will attack at the slightest sound. They are
2020, so far into the future.
Yes, exactly. The very, very near future. So watch for that. And mankind has retreated. And again, these creatures react to sound. So any sound that you make is an attack waiting to happen. And Krasinski and Blunt and their family are trying to survive in this. She is pregnant, which makes it all the more interesting. And the film is largely silent.
There's a lot of sign language in the thing.
They communicate via sign language, and you find yourself... The anxiety level increases with this film because any moment that you suspect a sound is going to be made, there's a birth scene in this film where Emily Blunt climbs into a bathtub to give birth and trying to do it silently. It's pretty harrowing, but the film's really ingenious in how it manages to try and keep sound out of it. It's a crackerjack little film. It hums along on all 8 cylinders for me.
Okay.
Did you see it, Vito?
Yeah, I liked it, but I enjoyed it a lot while I saw it, but I didn't think about it that much later on.
No.
Like, it was as good as an experience in the theater,
right?
But then I didn't think...
And it is the best sort of film to see with a group of people because of the reactions of the crowd.
But it's a good movie, though.
Yeah, I think it's a real popcorn film. It's the best popcorn film of the year.
Well, what about you, Vito? What's yours?
My number 4?
Yeah.
Well, it's Godard and Mon Amour. It's about the filmmaker Godard, and maybe it got me a lot because I'm an educator. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that Godard, he encourages all these disciples of his to be really rebellious and to go against authority and to question everything. And then they go against him. They turn against him, so it's like a teacher's worst nightmare. And the same thing also happened like with the Situationists in France. It was a philosophic group, and they encouraged students to rebel, and they ended up destroying chairs and throwing things out of windows and ruining books. So, like, you got to be careful sometimes because it could go too far, you know.
Well, it becomes self-destructive and self-defeating.
I think sometimes well-intentioned people could end up hurting their cause if they take a step forward too much, you know.
There's multiple ways of looking at it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about here.
The thing I like about it also was that the film was made by the director of The Artist, but he's copying Godard. So he's making a movie about the director and his style with the grainy shots and the jump cuts. You know, Tarantino got that, I think, from Godard too. And New York Times destroyed it. They said, if you love Godard, you'll hate this film. But I do like him, and I did.
What higher praise can you want to give?
I'm trying to think of the director. Is it Michael Hazanavicius?
Yes, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but that's right. I don't know if we can find it, though, but I had a really good time in the movie.
That's interesting. Hazanavicius wins the Oscar for Best Director for The Artist.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a film a few years later, and it's difficult to find. That's remarkable to me.
Mm-hmm. I like this one better. I mean, The Artist was fine. I didn't think it really deserved the award. But
Hollywood likes to congratulate it. Movies about itself.
So, you know, a lot of people, what I've noticed over the years, and mostly with actors, but I'm sure it's true with directors and writers too, once you win an Academy Award, sometimes that's a death knell for your career.
You find yourself in obscurity.
After that, good luck finding something, you know, or you can't find anything, so you wind up taking crap. Look at Ben Kingsley's career. Mm-hmm. He wins the Oscar for Gandhi, and the next thing you know, 3 years later, he's doing Species.
Nicolas Cage.
Like, what the hell?
Nicolas Cage.
Well, Nicolas Cage. Well, we won't get off on that.
Did he win an Oscar?
Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Leaving Las Vegas.
But Nicolas Cage's story is different. The guy's got tax troubles. Well, he's got to pay bills.
But he did make a lot of bad, fortunate film choices.
Oh, gosh. The Wicker Man remake was unbelievably bad.
His ghostwriters are a little hard to take, too. Yeah. Number 3.
Number 3 is a movie called The Rider by a Chinese director, Chloe Zhao.
Oh, an Asian film?
No. It is a film that takes place in the west of America, modern day America. It is actually cast with all untrained actors. The lead character's name is Brady. He's played by Brady Jandreau. He is a rodeo rider. And the character Brady is thrown and has a head injury, which can no longer do his job anymore. And because of where he lives and the economical climate of the area he lives in, the heart of America, that is his job. He's forced to take menial tasks. He finds himself being pulled back to trying to get back into the rodeo again and making these decisions. But the thing about this film is it's very lyrical about an individual who's had his livelihood taken away from him and how he tries to find his place in life again. His father and his brother also played trained actors, and I think that sort of loss that he feels kind of transposes over to the audience, and also gives most of America a chance to look at a portion of the country that you never see, that exists, that really exists, but we never get to see that.
You mean rodeo circuit out west?
Yeah, exactly. And the lifestyle that those people lead.
Yours, Vito?
Yeah, my number 3 was on Body and Soul, which is a Netflix movie.
Oh, okay.
It got nominated for Best Foreign Film. It's a movie, I really love the concept, like it's a great short story concept too. It's a man who very isolated, he dreams every night he becomes a deer. And then there's a woman who dreams that she's a deer every night too. And then they get together in their dreams. And they see the same psychologist. And the psychologist thinks that there was an elaborate joke, but they never met each other. And most of the romance is in dreams. I just thought it was a really great concept, and it was Hungarian. I like offbeat, off-the-rails love stories that don't go how you expected. Like I think it's comparable to The Lobster, which I love, which came out a couple of years ago. So I just thought it was really unique. And, I kind of opened my essay by saying that Paul Schrader did his great list of his favorite films. And he said that the thing that he's looking for the most is strangeness. And by that he means a movie that's so original that it can't easily be assimilated or copied. And I think this has strangeness. And also I think my number 1 movie has strangeness. And a lot of movies on my list, and also almost everything David Lynch ever did has that.
I agree.
You said it was a Netflix film. Was this something that Netflix paid for, or was this something they picked up?
I think they picked it up.
Okay.
It played at film festivals, and a lot of foreign films never open in America. Most of them don't.
Well, we talked about that a few minutes ago. That's one of the things about streaming services.
Yeah.
Not just independent films, but foreign films. If you're really looking for this stuff, chances are you'll probably be able to find it on one, if not multiple services.
Well, Netflix is leading the way on this sort of thing. They've had very deep pockets for film festival films. Thank goodness, because otherwise where would we see them? But Netflix has been the place for a lot of these things.
That's where I see most of my documentaries.
Yeah. How long those deep pockets will last.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait.
It depends on how long stuff like the Marvel movies make them money.
Right.
That's stuff that's packing people in. That and Joel, what's his face from Community? He does the half-hour thing. Joe McHale, which costs nothing to make, and I'm probably getting a lot of eyes, which somehow translates to money. I have no idea how that works.
Cheap to make, I guess.
Well, he's standing in front of a green screen for half an hour. Yeah, it's kind of cheap to make. Seriously, all the work's being done on a computer. Okay, you're number 2, Jim.
Number 2 is a movie called Leave No Trace by Deborah Granick. Last film, I should say, was 2010, 8 years ago, and that was Winter's Bone, which introduced the world to Jennifer Lawrence. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time since Deborah Granick's made a film. Story of a 13-year-old girl who lives in the woods, hiding from authorities with her traumatized Iraq vet father.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's Ben Foster plays the father. It's very melancholic, but also, surprisingly, given the situation, it has a lot of hope as well built into it. They have a real easy and very tender relationship together between the two of them. So much so that you almost wonder if the two actors didn't spend a lot of time before this getting to know each other, because they almost seem to finish each other's sentences at some point. She loves her dad, but she realizes that he's damaged. His psyche is a bit damaged, and she doesn't really want to be yoked to that, essentially. Deborah Granick, who's very much a feminist director, she's also the most mournful. The heroines in her movies don't move on happily, generally, but they are very responsible for themselves, too, as well. So that makes it an interesting dichotomy for me. So, yeah.
Yours, Vito?
My number 2 was First Reformed again.
First Reformed, okay.
I don't know.
What did you like about it?
Well, I thought the acting was really good. I thought the screenplay was great. I think Schrader is a little bit a better writer than a director, but there's more of him in here than almost any of his other films.
Well, I would assume he's probably got more writing credits than directing credits.
Right. And
for sure.
It's a very personal movie. It's his movie. It's not like a mass-manufactured assembly line movie. Like, not many people would have done that movie. It's special. Except for the Joan of Arc one, to me, this is clearly superior to everything else I saw all year. I'm a big admirer of the director Robert Bresson, and he wrote a book about him and a couple other filmmakers, and it has a lot of similarities to the movie Diary of a Country Priest, about a priest who has a crisis of faith and he gets sick as well. A Taxi Driver also borrows from that movie. I think he's copying the best, and he's still has an original style, and I just thought it was head and shoulders above everything else, and then couldn't shake it off. The impact of it stayed with me for months. I'm still thinking about that movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and what makes Schrader kind of special in that way, he doesn't try to emotionally eviscerate the audience with bleakness. I mean, this could have really just been this constant haranguing on the audience of bleakness, and he doesn't do that. It ends up being almost like a conversation about different elements, everything from institutions of faith to global warming. And that's a lot of gamut to cover.
And also has the most erotic non-sex scene I ever saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I guess.
Yeah. And it has lofty ambitions, but it's also never really preachy or overbearing either. With those.
And Amanda Seyfried is good too.
Yeah, she's great. She's really good.
She doesn't always have good choices of movies, but she can rise to the occasion if it needs to.
And that last scene we talked about earlier about seemed to be somewhat redemptive. That is that one sort of light in the darkness that the film has at the end. And it's also my number one film.
Well, sometimes actors and actresses, they got to take what roles they get.
Yeah.
They can't pick and choose. Because they don't have that luxury because they're not nearly big enough.
Well, Ethan Hawke is...
Ethan Hawke is aside, but you were talking about that other actor.
Amanda Seyfried, yeah. Well, I think a lot of actors and actresses, the medium has changed. Even though they're successful, I don't think the star system is what it used to be. So I think a lot of these actors and actresses want to work with screenwriters and directors that they personally admire. I mean, I can't imagine somebody not wanting to work with Paul Schrader at some point.
And Richard Linklater does a lot of stuff with Ethan Hawke.
A lot of films.
And Linklater, he's not well known, but he's a lot of people think he's one of the best of his generation.
I do. I think that the trilogy of films, they call them the before films, Before Midnight, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight, are three of the best movies about romantic love in the modern setting.
I had two of them on my top 10 lists. Yeah. All ones. And also, he played a Chet Baker type character.
Yes.
In Born to Be Blue.
Right.
And it was like a love story, and he had to choose between his gorgeous, perfect girlfriend and heroin. That's a love triangle, you know.
No, you can have a love triangle between two people and an inanimate object of some sort. Something else one of the two people loves just as much as the other person. And that's where the tragedy comes from.
So First Reform's my number one film as well.
Okay. That was my number two.
Oh, your number two? Okay. Well, then I think
your number one film you just said was
First Reformed, yeah, and I'm just going to echo what we've said a moment ago about what we just talked about. It's never, even though it's a harsh film in its subject matter, it's never a punishing experience, and it does have that light at the end. And I haven't seen anything better this year.
Okay.
I kind of doubt I will.
Okay, Vito, what's your number one film?
Yeah, the only thing I liked a little better was Jeanette, the Childhood of Joan of Arc, which
that's a French film.
It's a Bruno Dumont movie, yeah, and I think he's one of the better experimental filmmakers. You know, I think he's up there with Lynch and Lars von Trier.
Now, is this a historical film or is this an updating?
It takes place in Joan of Arc's era. I always thought her story was fascinating, but it's kind of like a prequel to her army stuff, and it shows her as a child. Two different actors play her. She does ordinary things like praise and praises God, but it combines high and low art elements. Like, I don't really necessarily agree with the whole low high art paradigm, but it has on one hand, it tells a story, a religious story, but it's told in songs, and it has synth pop, rap, and heavy metal songs. Okay. A lot of heavy metal music in it. And the thing I like about him, too, is you would think there'd be a really glossy, big Glee-type production, like Hamilton with fancy actors and stuff like that. He picks the most ordinary-looking people with ordinary voices. It's like neorealism. It's like, Rossellini or something. And he picks people off the street that have ordinary faces. And it makes it more relatable. There's weird comedy stuff, like there's a scene where a nun's doing cartwheels and she's singing, and the people are singing while they're plucking chickens. And it's just...
Hey, whistle while you work.
Yeah, and also, the Joan of Arc story is so wonderful, too. There's been so many good films.
Oh, one of my top 5 films, one of them would be the silent film with Maria Falconetti.
Yeah, The Passion Joan of Arc. Carl Dreyer. That's a great movie.
Carl Dreyer. Yeah.
And there's the Bresson did one, and it's just a rich story. And it's a different side of the story, and it's kind of a prequel. It's just wacky and wonderful and humorous and artistic, and still, it's irreverent, but I still think there's a spiritual element of it. That's what I like about Scorsese. Even if his films are violent and they're about gangsters, there's still a spiritual quality, and there's still people trying to save people.
He makes no bones about that. I mean, that all comes from his Catholic upbringing.
He's been very upfront in talking about his movies, that most of his movies are about redemption of some sort. It's a character who falls deep off the wagon of whatever it is, and they have to claw their way back into some sort of redemption. Or at least they attempt to, even if it's failed.
But Tarantino doesn't really have that, even though he's good at doing that.
Because I do not bow at the altar of Quentin Tarantino. I never have. I think Tarantino takes elements from things he's seen and uses them to create something new. The intent isn't there. That of Scorsese.
I still love his dialogue, though. But I don't consider him an equal to Scorsese.
No.
Maybe even getting off a little bit. But Blind Spotting would have been on this if I saw it in time.
Well, that's okay.
Throw it in there.
That's what your top 10 at the end of the year is for.
And it has two people from Hamilton in it. It also was influenced, I think, by Mean Streets. Two guys, I think they're really friends. They were in Hamilton. One is an African-American guy who's a poet. The other one, I think, is a rapper who's a white guy, and they're best friends. The African-American guy gets out of jail, and he's on parole. And the other guy is this violent guy who will beat anybody up who says hi to him, almost. That guy's afraid that he's going to get in trouble with him. They do spoken word during the movie. Improvised, it seems like in scenes. Originally, the whole thing's going to be spoken word. It's really edgy and powerful, and it's another film that, because of its originality and what it's trying to do, it's just so far above the usual cookie-cutter formula franchise movies. I like a lot of the Marvel movies.
Right. There's a sameness.
It shouldn't be all Marvel movies, though. Like you shouldn't have to.
A lot of Hollywood is bitching that the Hollywood machinery is being turned into Marvel-type movies, that's all that's being cranked out. I don't think that that's any more prevalent today than it would have been 40 years ago with Westerns, or 20 years ago with cop films.
And even Marvel, with this third wave of films, has been very canny about choosing directors like Taika Waititi for the Thor film and Ryan Coogler for Black Panther, that are directors who come from the indie world, that have a fairly unique voice, and trying to bring some of that to the film, which is a smart thing to do, because otherwise, for me, once you hit wave 2 of Marvel, every movie seems the same. It doesn't matter what director's name is on it. They all feel very much the same. They have a similar look and feel, whether that's by design, I guess.
But it's kind of sad, though, that Kenneth Branagh was one of the best Shakespeare actors I've seen in movies, and he did so many good Shakespeare films. I couldn't understand some of the dialogue because his accents are so thick. He ends up directing the worst Thor movie. He probably made more money than anything he's done.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
His whole career, he made more money with that probably.
He did, and I thought he brought a lot of those Shakespeare sensibilities to that Thor movie.
No, I didn't have a problem with the first Thor. I think the second
one is the
one that suffers.
I like the third one.
Yeah, well, that's Taika Waititi. Yeah. It's got his unique that Aussie sense of humor.
Like a rollicking roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay. Your blind spotting review will be up on the store's website soon. Got it, but it hasn't been posted yet, but it's coming, so you look forward to that. And both of your reviews that we just did, the print versions of that, you can find on myalternatereality.com. They're both up there now. They've been up there actually for a couple weeks, so be sure to check those out. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you guys a question to close this up with, and we'll be right back after this. Every Sunday is super at Alternate Reality with our Super Sunday Sale. Each Sunday we pick a different character, family, or publisher, and we discount all of their comics and trade paperbacks 25% off all day long. What we pick for the sale is different each week, but each Sunday you'll save 25% off. And that's all day long, all day Sunday, only at Alternate Reality. And we're back. Gentlemen, where do you see the state of the film industry at today? What are the problems? What are the pluses? And
it's a big question.
I know it's a big question. I'm going to ask you to be fairly brief with it.
The one word that comes.
Gerald, let's go with you. Let's go with you first because we went with Vito first for the top 10.
The first word that comes to my mind is influx. I think with the advent and proliferation of streaming, theatrical distribution is going to change. That will also create a situation where only the biggest, most expensive, high-profile films will play in theaters, and I think a lot of other films will get relegated to the streaming side of things, which is both good and bad. I've always been a big proponent of seeing things in a theater, whether it's a big film or a small one. That's the desired place for me, is in a theater. But if it gives more people more opportunities to see smaller films by streaming them at home, I'll take it. But I do think the industry is in a big state of flux right now.
Okay. What about you, Vito? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the movie-going experience has become splintered. I used to get invited to screenings, and now they send me links a lot to movies. Like when
you're on your own. You're on your own to go watch it by yourself,
right? And they give you a code. It's more, I think, effective a lot of times to see stuff on the big screen. But for certain films, just as good to see them on streaming. Like game night doesn't lose anything from being on it.
No, but my worry is a lot of people, and I've seen this in practice. I work with people who do this. They watch films on their phone, and I don't care how small a film is. I'm not going to watch it on my phone.
Like something like Lawrence of Arabia, I saw that in 70mm in a theater at the Music Box. Nothing, no other media, like no TV, unless you have like a TV as big as my house. And the Hitchcock films, I saw some of them again on big screen, and they were better.
It's a new experience. The key to that, you bring up an interesting point. I remember watching 2001 Kubrick's film on television for years, and then finally saw it on a big screen at the Music Box Theater, and it was like, I was going to say, seeing it again for the first time. Mm-hmm. It was a completely new experience. I think there's a lot to be said. It's a cliche, but the communal experience of seeing it in a theater with a group of people is can't be matched at home.
I think there's another thing in play too. If I can wait here for a minute, I mentioned before that my daughter and I, we watched the Joel McHale show on Netflix. That's the same setting, the same venue, the same thing that I can watch Lawrence of Arabia on, which is the same thing that I can watch the news on, which is the same thing that I can watch
the Cubs game on.
Mm-hmm. And at some point, it's just fodder. It's just fodder. When you go to the theater, I saw Lawrence of Arabia too in 70mm, McClure Court, back when they released it, back whenever it was 79 or 89, 90, 91, whatever that was. And there is nothing like seeing that movie at that size on that big screen. Right. I mean, you can watch it at home. I've got like a 65-inch flat screen TV at home, and it's big, and in the room it's in it. It sort of mocks the movie going experience, the size of the room compared to the size of the screen that I'm watching. But at the same time, I'm watching the news on that same thing.
Exactly.
And I'm not watching the news on a 70mm screen at McClure Court.
No, it's homogenizing the experience. That's the other thing about this as well. You know, we're of an age where we remember when big films came to television, it was a huge deal. The Poseidon Adventure is going to be on the ABC Sunday Night Movie. Movies today have become essentially visual chewing gum. Yeah. It's what's this week's new flavor.
And that's the problem with the top 10 list that you guys just gave me, is that all those films wind up that way.
Unfortunately.
No matter how good or bad they are, they all wind up that way.
Yeah, they're just another product. And the fact that physical media is disappearing as well, from the VHS to the DVD to the Blu-ray, that's all disappearing. It's becoming more of a nebulous product too. It's not what it was.
Yeah, I know he's considered to be old-fashioned by a lot of people, but Ingmar Bergman had this kind of cult where people watch all his films, and it was like a religious experience going to see his movies. It was a temple to be in a theater.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot to be said for that.
And you would talk to people about the movie for 2 hours after the film. Sometimes it was better than a movie, the conversation. And if you're seeing a movie on Netflix and your mother's bothering you and the phone call's ringing and you're eating and you stop it 3 times and it's not the same thing,
I'll give you a perfect example. For me, this show that we're doing right now, I will be editing at some point at home in my easy chair with something playing on the TV in the background, and it could be Lawrence of Arabia or it could be the Cubs game. It doesn't matter, but it'll be just the thing that's running in the house. And if it's Lawrence of Arabia, yes, I know 1,001 things about Lawrence of Arabia and can appreciate it on a bunch of different levels, but it's background noise.
Exactly.
It just becomes background noise, and at some point it's like, well, it's over with. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I better go to bed. I better take my dirty dishes to the sink, and I think I got to brush my teeth. And the experience.
The dog's barking. I got to do that.
There's no temple.
No.
I heard about an interesting study where they found out among like the post-millennial kids, they're not watching whole TV shows as much now. They're watching a lot of stuff on YouTube, 50-minute clips.
Yeah.
Maybe the movies and shows will get shorter. I don't know.
Well, one disconcerting thing I read about older films and TV shows that millennials and younger are doing are watching them at 1.5 speed.
My daughter, she's got a lot of homework that she gets in, and when she has to read a book, she will read the book and she will listen to the book on a streaming service, an audiobook. She will listen to the book at 1.5 times normal speed, and she'll be sitting there. I've heard it with the thing off, and it sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. And I go, how can you understand that? Her attitude is, you just train yourself to do it.
I can't imagine what would Orson Welles think if he knew people were watching Citizen Kane at 1.5 speed.
Well, like she has to read 1984 this summer, okay, and Jane Eyre this summer, and she'll be listening to those as she reads them, okay, at 1.5 speed, like that, and it's like, well, where is the enjoyment at out of that? I mean, at some point there has to be an enjoyment, and you have to take it in at your own speed, not at 1.5 times speed.
Yeah, and how are you reacting to the words on the page and all that sort of thing? It's all lost.
Yeah.
It's all lost.
That's going to do it, gentlemen. We're done for today. Thank you very much for both coming in today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. As I said, you can find both of your reviews for the top 10 and all your other stuff on myalternatereality.com, along with all of this week's shipping, along with Bo's news, along with Vito Carly's reviews and JR's reviews, and everything else there is about alternate reality at myalternatereality.com. Yes, Vito?
I could plug one thing.
Yes, plug one thing.
There's a movie coming out called The Last Living Hippie, and it's about a friend of mine named Lee Groban. He read a poem in a movie for 86 hours.
Okay.
It's the longest film. And they interviewed me about him, and so that's going to be online some places, and it's going to come out some places.
Great.
Okay, well, when you get the link, let me know.
Okay, Nancy Beckle's the director, but thank you.
Okay.
Good show.
Otherwise, until next time, this is Comic Book Man.
It's good old JR.
Vito, say goodbye.
Goodbye, folks.
Bye, folks. And until then, bye! Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please like and share it with all your friends. We value your feedback, so drop us a question, comment, show idea, or complaint either at arcomics@msn.com or, if provided, in the comments section down below on this platform. The opinions expressed in this episode are solely those of the individuals and not necessarily those of Alternate Reality Incorporated. This show is, as always, coming to you from the Alternate Reality Comic Shop, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie, serving Chicago comics fandom since 1994.
You want to take it from the top?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay.